Hello, welcome to the TechHub.training challenge solution video in conjunction with the Alteryx learning path for the corporate audit preparation challenge. This challenge is solved in Alteryx and deals with you as a manager of a branch at simple screen printing. So today we're going to go in and try and make sure that our sales data is good and accurate and ready in preparation for the upcoming corporate audit. So to start, I'll go ahead and assume that we've all ran our Alteryx package, the starting package. You'll see where there's 4 different files in here, well really 6. So we have a table, this items table, which contains various items that simple screen printing has. Their SKU number, which is kind of like a primary key, the description and an inactive column, which states whether or not the item is currently active. And then there's this order table, which this contains a list of orders with various different attributes. And then we have the order detail table, which contains different attributes about each order. So for example, order number 332 here might have multiple lines in the order detail table that describe exactly what came with that order. So we're going to want to use this data to come up with, to solve our scenario. Additionally, we have this text input here, which you can see here, which contains some new description names that your salesman identified were inaccurate. So if we take a look here, there's the item SKU numbers, what the old description and the new description were. So for example, this item was said the Hanes 100% cotton tagless, and now it's the 50/50 cotton poly. So it was slightly inaccurate, so we just want to clean that type of information up. So to start with solving this challenge, we first need to make sure that these item names are accurate in the items table. So the challenge asks for you to use a find and replace tool. So let's go ahead and do so. So we drag in the find and replace tool. This is very similar to a VLOOKUP or an XLOOKUP in Excel, where you can essentially find data in one table and use it to replace data in another table. So for this case, we're going to want to make sure that the thing that we want to replace is in the replace arm. So in this case, we actually don't want the items table to be there. We want these item name replacements to go there. So I'll go ahead and drag that there, and then we're going to drag the items table. So now let's configure the tool to make sure the right thing is happening. Alteryx is going to try and help us here. However, we're going to want to replace these descriptions with the new description if it exists. So it's going to default to saying SKU or the SKU here, but instead we actually want to find the description field. That's where we want it to look. So we're going to have it look in the description field, and then for this find value, that's asking which item in our replacement we want to match with the item in the items. In this case, we want to match on this old description number. So let's go ahead and hit old description. Great. And then we have some options here. If we wanted to do like an XLOOKUP where we want to just add the new description to it, we could append field here and add the new description. However, we actually don't want to do that. We want to replace. So let's go ahead and replace, and let's replace it with the new description. So this is going to look into the items table. It's going to find the old description that matches the description field. It's going to replace it with the new description. Great. We'll go ahead and run that just to see what it looks like. You'll notice this data does take a little while to run. I'll show you a trick here in a second on how to reduce that load time. But you can see this top item here, it used to say Nevada Day Pack, but afterwards you can see this changes to Pack. So that's great. I'm going to go ahead and highlight my input data files. If you right click and you do cache and run workflow, it'll run the data load here, but then each time we run in the future, those are going to be preloaded. So we won't have to worry about long load times for the future. Alright, next let's focus on step 3, which asks us which items were not sold between 2010 and 2020. Right, so to do this, we're going to do multiple steps. So first, we're going to use a join tool to join the order and order details table. So this is just to make sure we get all the information we need for each order, because each order could have multiple items, so we just want to make sure that we're not missing anything. So the join tool configuration has a lot of interesting things. The thing we're going to want to pay attention to are what these models are. So this is a left join, an inner join, and a right join. So in this case, we're trying to get the orders and the order detail together. All we want to do is focus on orders that have order detail. So that's going to be this middle join here. So these three pictorial outputs are represented by these L, J, and R outputs on the join tool. Next, we need to figure out what to join on. We have to find something that these tables have in common with each other. So if we look at just the order table down here, we can see there's a JT num, a job name, job type, lots of other things here. If you look at the order detail table, line item ID, JT num, and then all these items. So you can see this JT num here, this matches with the order table. And because they're the same, that's what we're going to want to join on. So we do left, JT num, Alteryx will automatically populate the right side if it finds something that matches. In this case, it does. And so that's what we're going to want to see. So let's go ahead and run. Let's see what that looks like. Not faster this time. All right, so here's our inner join. So this is going to be all orders that had order detail, and then it's also going to show all the columns from both tables. What's one thing to note, when you're doing a join like this, it's going to duplicate this JT num down here. You're going to have two JT num columns. It's common practice to just get rid of one that you're not going to need. So I'm going to go ahead and deselect this one, because this is just going to say the exact same thing as this. All right, next it says to use another join tool to combine the output from above to the updated items table. So we can see here we have, this is what we call our updated items table, right? So it has a SKU, a description, and an inactive. And then there's this here. So we can see, oh, this has a SKU number in common with this one. So let's go ahead and join those two together on that. Remember, we're only focusing on orders that have order detail, so we're going to grab this J, this inner join. That's the one that has detail from both. If we look at this left join, these are all the order detail that didn't have an order. This is probably an issue we need to address later, but for the purpose of this problem, we're going to ignore and just focus on this inner join. So if we want to configure this join, we already identified the SKU is what's common between the two, and that's it. So let's go ahead and run. Okay, that's great. So now we've got some interesting things to look at here. So this inner join, what is it telling us? This is telling us all of our orders that also have items in it. And then this left join is going to be telling us all of the items that were not in any order, right? This is going to contain all items except for the ones that were in an order. So that essentially means that these items that are listed here were not in any orders, which is actually what we're looking for, right? Because the problem we're trying to find the data between 2010 and 2020 that did not have any orders. This right join is going to be all orders that didn't have an item in the items table. So that's going to be something we're concerned about, but again, for the scope of this problem, let's focus on just the items here. And in fact, I believe the problem asks you to only limit the data output to just the 3 item tool information. So you can see here, this is what's called an embedded select tool. When you do a join, you can do a select on any data field within that join. So in this case, we want to limit it to just these top 3 because these are the 3 from the items table. Rather than going through and clicking all of these, the easiest way to do it is just to click this top box on the right, and that'll uncheck all of them, and then we can just click those top 3. So now let's go ahead and run, and then we will see that our inner join output now has SKUs, descriptions, and inactive. These are all items that were in an order. These are all items that were not in an order. Great. So now we need to decide, we need to actually say, hey, which ones are we going to ask our manager about and which ones are we okay with? So we have these two text files in your starting file. If you look here, there's this report status that says ask manager and one that says good. So we want to ask our manager about the ones that don't have orders, right? We're concerned that these are inappropriately assigned, like in our inventory, right? They're bloating our data and we should clean it out. So what we're going to want to do is we're going to append this to the output of all items that fit that criteria. So remember our discussion here. That is this left join. These are all items that did not have any orders. So let's go ahead and grab an append fields tool. And so this is a very interesting and useful tool. What it does is it takes something from the source and appends it to a target. So essentially, it'll take a column of data from this and add it to each row, right? So in this case, we want each of these items to have another column that says ask manager for report status. So here's what's tricky, is there's this source and the target. The source is actually going to be what you want to append to the table. And then the target is going to be what you want to append it to. So in this case, we want to append this report status. So we're going to go ahead and drag that to the source. And then we're going to take this left join and we're going to put that there for the target. So let's go ahead and run and just see what that looks like. Okay, this is exactly what we were hoping would happen, right? So we have says ask manager. So now we want to do the same thing with the ones that we are okay with, the ones that say report status good. So we're going to repeat the same thing. We're going to put this down here. We're going to want to grab another append fields tool. I'll do this one a little bit faster. Again, the source goes here. And let's run. Great. So now this is good. These ones are ask manager. Great. So next, we want to work with one data set. So we're going to want to combine them together. So the join tool that you want to use to do this is actually the union tool. So you can think of the union tool as kind of like a vertical join. So this join tool is taking two data sets and merging them on one column, and it's kind of like smashing them horizontally together. The union tool does that same thing, but vertically. The key thing you need to keep in mind with the union tool is both data sets need to have the same number of columns and they need to contain similar information. So in this case, we can see the output from here. We have 4 columns that have the same names, 4 columns that have the same names. So this is a perfect candidate to union them together. So let's see what that looks like really quick. Excellent. Seemed to work all right. So now we have a lot of records. One thing you may have noticed when I was doing this over here, you see how there's a lot of duplicates here. And that's just the way we do the process. It just, because each item could be in multiple orders, there's going to be a lot of duplicate records. So let's go ahead and start our data cleaning. First, we're going to want to get rid of those duplicates, which you learned earlier in the learning path, but you'd want to use a unique tool to do that. So we're going to use a unique tool, and then because we know the SKU is a primary key, we can just select just the SKU and filter on that. So let's do that. Okay, and then next we're going to want to do a couple of filters on the data as the problem suggests. So we're going to want to filter on the inactive because we're only going to want to be concerned with items that are active. So in this case, if this is true, then we're going to be concerned about that. So we only want to keep the ones that are false. And then I'll go ahead and throw this one here because we're also going to want to filter on the report status to the ones that say ask manager. So let's do that. And then finally, we're going to use a select tool to just clean up our report a little bit. So let's get rid of that report status column. And then I'll go ahead and do a browse tool for now. but you'd want to do an output data tool, and you'd want to save that to your own files that you could send to corporate. But for the purpose of this video, we'll just demonstrate what this looks like in a browse tool. So let's go ahead and click this, and then here we go. Here are all the items that we would need to send corporate. This is a great way to be able to see how all the join tools work. Thank you for watching this video. Hope you're able to learn about all the Alteryx data preparation and join tools. Thank you.